Hello, everybody. Welcome to Attwood Unleashed, number 41, I think it is. Yes. And we're commencing early because our first guest is coming in 10 minutes. And I just want to run down the lineup again and hopefully get you guys in the chat ready with your flat earth questions. So, the first guest is theorist Mark K. Sargent. And we're going to be debating his flat earth viewpoint. In 2015, he released a series of YouTube videos titled Flat Earth Clues, delving into the possibility of our human civilization actually being inside a Truman Show, like an enclosed system, and how it's been hidden from the public since 1956. Why 1956? You can find his content on YouTube, Amazon, books, and the Netflix documentary Behind the Curve. Have you seen that one, Andrew?
No, I have not. Have you seen it? And what are your views on all this curviness and flatness and the Earth in general?
I prefer a bit of curviness to flatness.
Yeah, well, tell him we'll curve his enthusiasm.
We're gonna throw some Pythagoras, and was it Aristotle and Anaxagoras? What was the middle one?
I don't know, something like that, wasn't it?
Oh my goodness, I've closed that.
People from thousands of years ago who worked out that the world is spherical, the Earth.
I don't that ready to go, but I had to restart my computer. What was it again? Earth.
What?
Earth is sphere discovered. Let's get this back up. Who figured out the Earth is round? Star Child. All right, so the middle one was Anaxagoras. I wasn't far off, was I?
Do you think like Agorus at the end of names was like Smith back then?
Definitely. You probably have you're descended from an Agorus if you go back far enough.
Probably, yeah. Everyone in the world, I think, 2,000 years ago. Everybody alive today has descended in some form from everybody alive 2,000 years ago.
Including primordial swamp creatures.
Yes, including them as well.
All right, after the spherical Earth debate versus the flat Earth, we're then going, oh, my camera just did that thing. I've been fiddling with it all day, and it has not made me bright. This is good. I've been stuck with this brightness problem. All right, next up is Monica. Andrew.
Yes, Monica. Bija Misar.
Who's going to report in from the front lines of South America on the cartels and border for over 10 years. And we actually did a live stream. We recorded it from a prison in Ecuador on Sunday with Posh Pete, with the gang members. Mm-hmm. So that, Posh Pete Part 4, will be coming out soon. And he told us that the prison he was housed in, he sent us all these pictures of the massacres. And during the last 3 massacres, in the last year, hundreds of people have died. Over 100 died in one day. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. There was a picture of a guy holding his friend's head. And then he had videos of people with absolutely heinous things happening to him, including one whereby they held a guy's heart up in front of the camera and it was still beating. Can you believe that?
Oh my word.
I will never forget that image.
Disgusting.
I will take it to the grave. Yeah, it was absolutely barbaric. But the sad thing is, these are all like barrio kids. And they're basically put in a slaughterhouse. And I think that it's by design. Like the government knows, just let them wipe each other out. I mean, they had so many weapons there that they were showing us. Insane. Absolutely insane. The guards bring the weapons in for them. Yeah.
Oh my word.
Yep.
We're lucky to live where we do.
Indeed. So, all right. So Dan Wise is coming back for part 3. He was in the feds. And if you didn't see the end of part 2, the other 2 parts, it's like been a running series on Attwood Unleashed. He talked about a guy, I think it was Louis, was it? The snitch?
Yeah, I think so.
And there was like a beating.
Yeah.
But Louis came back because because he was
The
a
snitch was fine though. That was the funny thing because you know about prison stuff obviously better than me, but my naive opinion from outside, I always thought like the snitches get killed just like those people who do bad things to little people as well. And apparently that wasn't the case. Everyone was like, well, that's just what they do, so it was fine.
Depends on the environment. Some of these guys are embedded, and the guards protect them to keep the information flowing.
Yeah.
All right, then we're going over to the M trial with Addy ads on the Patreon section, which is the final 2 hours of this 4-hour program. The link to the Patreon is at the top of the description box below this video on YouTube. And a huge shout out and thank you to all the Patreons enabling us now to expand our content production. We couldn't be doing it without you guys. So we're going up from 3 hours to 4 hours, courtesy of Andrew Gold.
Oh yeah. Showing my trailer today as well. I've uploaded it to the side.
Oh yeah. Then we've got Paul Ponting. He's an ex-cop exposing police corruption. And then we've got YouTuber XConDocTV813 talking about the prison stuff. Then we've got Jehovah's Witness Truth and YouTuber Jordan Robertson coming back. So, Andrew, this trailer, we're gonna bring the guest in at 6. We've got 2 minutes. How long is this trailer?
90 seconds. Oh, but
But
later this is going to be... Oh, go on.
What's the trailer about?
It's my show On the Edge with Andrew Gold, this wonderful YouTube channel, and your face is right in the middle of the trailer because you're one of my favourite guests I ever had on.
You've probably got me doing something bizarre.
Have you seen it yet? You haven't seen it yet?
No, come on, press the button.
Should we do it? All right, it's 90 seconds. Here we go.
The whole thing is fucked up. There was the out-of-control, drug-addled Amanda Knox.
The great lie about the internet is that we think it's about us.
It's funny to think of insects having sperm.
Well, how else do you think they reproduce? Happens to all of us.
I mean, what kind of a god? He sounds like a pimp.
It's about tech companies who are making a fortune out of us.
So why, as far as I know, are you not a serial killer?
Why would I answer that?
Do you see any part of your father in you?
I'll see something in me that reminds me of something that I despised in him.
Was there violence? Yes. And people are going to get dealt with.
How would you feel if somebody came in now and just started strangling me?
Well, I did not feel connected to you, Andrew.
I love you so much. You're so great. Your hair's lovely.
You've got a nice penis. So,
I thought I was going to die out there, and I came close a couple of times.
I have been on the receiving end of a sort of stalking and harassment campaign.
No one's saying life is fair. It is not fair. I guarantee it.
This whole woke movement, people will be laughing their heads off at this idea that this ever happened.
What's next for you?
So, my own death. I want them to string me as a skeleton, and then I can hang in my own dissecting room and teach for the rest of my death.
Wow, that's really good. Did you get James, my cameraman, to do that for you?
No, I did it myself. Who's your cameraman?
I'm just messing. That was excellent, man. That was superb. James, the cameraman, does our trailers.
Oh right, I haven't seen enough of those trailers. I bet they're very good. But yeah, no, it was. I spent the whole Christmas with no friends, not seeing anyone, just sitting around making that trailer. So I hope your lovely loyal fan base will enjoy it enough to want to go over to On the Edge with Andrew Gold.
Oh, I'm sure they did after I watched it, and I was just like, whoa, I want more.
Did you like yourself in it?
That was the trying to get my ego going, aren't you? Naughty, naughty. Now we are at 6 minutes, 6 o'clock. We're going to bring in Mark K. Sargent, and we're going to debate his flat Earth viewpoint. He began looking at flat Earth theory in 2014, released a series of YouTube videos titled Flat Earth Clues, delving into the possibility that our human civilization actually being inside a Truman Show like enclosed system. Now that is fascinating. I can't wait to hear this, because we could be something that we're not. We don't know what we are really, and how it's been hidden from the public since 1956. You can find Mark's content on YouTube, books, Amazon, and the Netflix documentary Behind the Curve. And if you've got any questions for Mark, then please throw them at us in the chat. Hey, Mark, how's it going?
It's going pretty good, guys. And I am sure your chat room will have questions.
I hope so. Did you like my trailer there, Mark?
I did. It was very interesting. I've never been on a show like this. In fact, I was a little surprised when your guy contacted me. It's like, really? Really?
Well, this is Sean's show. I'm just like the window dressing. I'm the eye candy.
So I always start out by asking my guests, where in the world are they? In your case, where in the flat world are you?
I am just north of Seattle, on the west coast of the United States, on a little island just next to Canada called Whidbey, Whidbey.
Are you a fan of Nirvana?
Really? You're gonna make that sort of? I was here when that whole grunge thing started up, and I left shortly afterwards to live in Colorado for 20 years. But it was amazing because MTV just lived here. They just brought up so many trucks, and they were just here constantly. But, and there was only like 6, 7 bands up here, but it made up the majority of the scene. So yeah.
I'll never forget that MTV Candle Night Vigil that Kurt Cobain did.
I was there.
You were there?
Oh yeah. I was there at the Seattle Center. I mean, it's not like I was, crying in front of it. It was a little. I was an '80s kid, so the whole grunge thing was like, I kind of liked glam rock. I kind of dug that whole thing.
Was that a big Seattle thing then, Nirvana?
Oh, but it spread everywhere.
That was grunge was Seattle. It was the whole, dark plaid and rain and, nobody taking a shower for a week, that sort of stuff.
I think of Fraser Crane.
Oh, from the show.
Yeah, that's Seattle.
Yeah, that is Seattle. Yes,
that's
absolutely from the show Frasier.
We've done videos about the Kurt Cobain, the conspiracy with Courtney Love. Have you ever looked at any of that stuff?
Yeah, and we're never, of course, going to know the whole truth there. But I mean, she's not exactly a pillar of goodness. Let's put it that way. So I don't know.
Her own private investigator that she hired to look into it, looked into it, and then did a documentary about her involvement because he was
I mean, a lot of rock stars have their own personal demons, so it's tough to say. And grunge is a depressing sort of genre. Come on, let's face it. It's not exactly poppy. It's not Madonna.
Yeah. Are you able to do a Kurt Cobain impression, Andrew?
Come as you are. Da-na-na. Like that?
I'm going to read you something, Mark.
Yeah.
And let's get your thoughts on this.
I am, by the way, not looking at the chat room. I try to avoid anything over there because this is my first time on Restream.
It's great because you can broadcast on every platform and simultaneously on multiple YouTube channels.
Did not know that.
All right, so I've got this off the internet. I believe that it was Pythagoras who first proposed that the Earth was round. He based his idea on the fact that he showed the moon must be round by observing the shape of the Terminator. The line between the part of the moon part of the moon in the light and the part of the moon in the dark, as it moved through its orbital cycle. Pythagoras reasoned that if the moon was round, then the Earth must be round as well. After that, sometimes between 500 BC and 430 BC, a fellow called Anaxagoras determined the true cause of solar and lunar eclipses and then the shape of the Earth's shadow on the moon during the lunar eclipse. It was also used as evidence that the Earth was round. Around 350 BC, the great Aristotle declared that the Earth was a sphere based on observations he made about which constellations you could see in the sky as you traveled further and further away from the equator. Right. And during the next 100 years or so, Aristarchus and Eratosthenes actually measured the size of the Earth. All right, let's get your response to that.
Oh, my response to that?
Yeah.
All that aside, why did just about every culture in the world draw the same thing when it came to the cosmology? In fact, you could Google this anytime you want. Type in ancient cosmologies. They all drew the same thing. They all drew a snow globe, which is, we're living on some. And by the way, we don't use the word round, or so we don't when we're describing globe, sphere, or ball. Because your dining room table is round, your dinner plate is round, but they all drew the same thing, which is, we're living on a flat stationary disk somewhere that's covered with some sort of barrier, and everything you see on the sky is moving, not us. And so why did just about every culture draw the same thing? I know you're going to say, oh, the Greeks, screw the Greeks, right? Even they didn't know. They were talking about this when they didn't know about the shape of the continents. So it's like, yeah, great. I get your whole sticks and shadows argument, but it also works if the light source is very, very close and very, very small. How's that?
So go on, Sean. What is your view then of, let's get that clear. So what is your view of how the Earth does look? You're in Seattle.
Exactly. What does the world look like?
Yeah, go on.
And normally I would have a background, but the green screen we tried earlier, for whatever reason, on this doesn't do very well. You are living in a building with walls and a floor and a ceiling, for lack of a better term, a planetarium, a terrarium, Hollywood soundstage. And for, again, most of the cultures, it kind of looks like a snow globe. So you were talking about aside from the building things, you're talking about a giant saltwater pond with islands in the middle of it, which are our continents, and the North Pole would be in the center, and there is no official South Pole. It's just surrounded. In fact, all the continents look pretty much the same, with the exception of Antarctica. Antarctica isn't this island continent that looks like Australia, roughly the same size. It is stretched out around the entire thing, and it's much, much larger. And nobody figured this out until about 1960, the United States and the Soviet Union, and they decided that civilization had come too far. So it's like, you know what? We're just not going to tell anybody until we have to. How do I know this? That's the question.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mostly verifying ancient cosmologies. I looked into this back in 2014 because I hated it. Everybody that goes into flat Earth hates it. Oh God, they hate it so much, including me, because it's ridiculous. I've been into conspiracies. I have an opinion on every conspiracy you could think of. Some I like, some I hate, but there was one I absolutely would not look at, which was flat Earth. And in 2014, I was like, I'm getting older, so I was like, you know what? I'll take a look. Why not? Knock this thing out in a weekend, and hammered on 9 months later, right? 9 months later, in being in 2015, I gave up. I said, okay, I can't prove the globe in a court of law anymore. I'm just going to ask the internet, because the internet hive mind is very, very intelligent. And I said, tell me where I went wrong. And I made a series of videos called Flat Earth Clues, put them out there, put all my contact information out there, said, shoot it down, please. Let me get back to my life. And everyone was coming back to me with all sorts of amazing stuff. I had pilots and engineers and air traffic controllers and lots of people from the military. They're all saying, you know what? It's not that crazy. Here's why. And so, sorry, but as far as the 5 bullet points, I think I sent you the thing on it. I won't go into the details because I know we're limited on time. But real quick, long distance photography, first and foremost. That's what drags most people into this, which is you can see way farther than you normally could. So if the curvature is 8 inches per mile, eventually the boats are gone, and they're gone forever. You should never be able to see them again. But with HD technology, again, this is post-grunge music. With HD cameras, now you can zoom into the distance and you can pull these boats back into frame. Number one. Number two, vacuum versus gravity, meaning there's no way a pure vacuum of space would not rip off the atmosphere. And I could give you an example on that. Number three would be the moon temperature, which is the moon is generating a cold laser light, which just blows me away, meaning it's colder in the moonlight than the moon shade, up to 13 degrees Fahrenheit. Number four would be the eclipse shadow, kind of tying into Sean's question earlier, which is why is the eclipse shadow so small? If the moon is 2,000 miles wide, why is the blackout zone only 70 miles wide, which is roughly what we kind of say the moon is in size? And five would be the Van Allen radiation belt question, which is, okay, if the Van Allen radiation belts deadly? Yes or no? If they are, then how the Americans get through them with no shielding whatsoever, and nobody died, nobody got radiation poisoning. There's still 4 of these guys limping around today. And if they are not deadly, then why did NASA make this wonderful program saying, oh yeah, we can't test our Mars program capsules because there's too much radiation and people would die? There you go. That's the 5 questions I threw at this astrophysicist out of Georgetown University, and he just folded. Nope, not doing this. Going home.
All right,
Well,
that's all.
go on, Sean.
That's all very technical, and perhaps some of the viewers are.
I know, I can make it easy for them if you want me to.
Let me ask you some questions. Just get some basics here.
Okay.
What shape do you believe the Earth is then? And
looking
at it from space.
What space?
If it's flat, is it like a 45-inch single with UK on one side and Australia on the other?
Here, hang on.
If you've got questions, viewers, as well, please put them in the chat. And Ash is currently collating.
There you go.
So you believe that the Earth is like a snow dome, the shape of a snow dome?
Yep. That's about as easy as it gets right there. And by the way, when you said, it's floating in space, what space? Why does there have to be space?
Like pictures taken from space that show the shape of the Earth. But wouldn't pilots, as they reached the base of the snow dome, airplane pilots, wouldn't they have to seriously adjust their flight trajectory to go down the
not normal pilots, because you're talking about something that's very, very huge. This thing is so big, and I know it's a small little model, and I could bring out a bigger model, but you can look these up. The dome of this thing would be so high by comparison. I mean, even if it was, say, 3,000 miles high, well, commercial aircraft cap out at about 10 miles. Spy planes, if you believe them, cap out at about 20 miles. So they don't have to do anything. There's this wonderful video by Neil deGrasse Tyson, the world's most famous scientist, not knocking Brian Cox. He's number 2. Which is, he said that, there was a Red Bull jump that happened some years ago. And the Red Bull, they sent this guy up in a balloon, right? Put him in an astronaut suit and had him jump out at 130,000 feet. It's not that high. It's only 20 miles. Well, the pictures they took showed this massive, massive curvature. And Neil deGrasse Tyson comes out. He goes, yeah, it's scientifically dishonest. Now, he hates flat Earth, but he said this. He goes, you can't see the curve from 130,000 feet. So why is Red Bull doing this? And it's like, well, the images. I've talked to producers, and I asked them, why do you run those Red Bull images? And they go, well, it's good television. They're good images. They're dramatic. They show this massive curve. I go, but it's not real. We don't care. It gets viewers.
So one of our viewers, Ari, has pointed out that if it were the shape that you're proposing, that perhaps satellites wouldn't be able to work because they're programmed to orbit a spherical Earth.
Look up something called the High Altitude NASA Balloon Program. They've been doing this since the 50s. NASA is the world's largest producer and consumer of helium in the world. A lot of people don't know this. They can launch balloons, and it's not secret information. They can launch payloads of upwards of 4 tons, which is, and I'm not going to do the conversion for you guys, roughly 8,000 pounds. That's more than a couple cars. And they can do this with balloons, pennies on the dollar. And they can keep them up there. It's not like weather balloons where they just go up and they burst and they come back down. They can keep them up there for years, which also answers a big question of ours, which was, if you remember the movie Gravity with Sandra Bullock, the concept was, a satellite ran into another satellite, and then it just became this cascading effect, and the whole sky became this thing of jagged metal. It's like, that would have happened already. In fact, it would have happened many, many times. So why hasn't it? Why haven't we seen this cascading effect of satellites? It's because they're not rotating its ball. They're just freaking balloons hanging up there, and you can see them go down. We got wonderful videos. They go down every once in a while, and they get picked up really quickly and quietly and taken away. No one wants to talk about it. It's brilliant.
I'm interested, I think, on almost a philosophical level. The first thing you said when I asked why you believe the Earth is flat was the ancient cosmologists, I think you said.
Yeah.
Why give them more weight and credence than modern scientists with all the science and they didn't even have electricity? But those ancient cosmologists, they can't have been that smart.
Well, no, but at the same time, everyone was on the same page. Meaning, you have governments that weren't communicating back in the day when it was just horses and ships. And yet they were all seeing and drawing the exact same things. That was, that when I was looking at that, I was going, okay, why is everybody looking at this the exact same way? It's like, because they were all ignorant. They couldn't read and write. And it was like they were just observing the stars, going over in the sky. And yet, if you watch a time lapse video, not much has changed since then. If you watch a time lapse, type in like Star Trails time lapse. When you watch that, you can't break out of the illusion. When you're watching that, it's like, because of science tells you that it's like, oh, we're moving, not the stars. But when you watch it, it's the stars that are moving. So why isn't the easiest answer the best answer in this case? Why aren't the stars moving? Why, why? It's like, because NASA told us so. It's like, oh, you mean the Americans? And by the way, I have to bring this up because I know you guys are out in England, right?
Yeah.
You're in England. So Americans believe absolutely, because, it's a patriotic duty, that we went to the moon and, we were the only ones. We planted the flag. Go, go, rah, rah. We're the best. Why did you guys believe it? And every time I ask this, the knee-jerk response is almost inevitably the same, which is, oh, because it was on television. Because the Americans put it on television and go, because we don't lie about anything ever. Especially our governments. We never lie. Americans, oh God, we're so honest. Come on, you don't believe that. And by the way, that also, we left in 1972. Why didn't anybody go back? And I have to give the British credit. I have to give the UK credit, because all these other countries got into a space program, right? There's a Japan space program, and Russian and the European Union and stuff. England never got into it. Why not? Because they were smart. That's why. Remember, don't forget the James Bond film where they made fun of it, where Sean Connery's running across the fake moon set. It was brilliant. And the astronauts couldn't catch him because they were still in character. They were running in slow motion. Awesome.
But aren't they sort of making fun of you, Mark, with those? When you see satirical sort of things in TV shows and movies and things, they're making the joke is that some people really believe this was faked.
Sometimes it's a joke, and sometimes I think they're doing a wink to the camera. Going all the way back to the wonderful documentary by Stanley Kubrick, yes, which was about Stanley Kubrick, called Room 237. Where he supposedly built into The Shining the entire his involvement in the American fake moon program, which is, why not? And by the way, I don't blame him. Every director would have gone for it. If the government comes to you with a blank check and says, oh yeah, we'll give you unlimited money to do this, but you can't tell anybody, who wouldn't go for that?
So if the Earth is flat, why do we say Australians are down under?
That's just conditioning. That's straight up conditioning. In fact, we have a hard time. Our community has a hard time breaking out of that, because there's so many sayings, especially the down under and down here and down there. Even in America, when we're driving from Seattle to California, oh yeah, we're going to drive down to California. And people forget, it's like, even if it was a globe, why is this the top and Australia's the bottom? But that's a whole other thing. It's
Could you demonstrate on your object where Australia is?
Oh, it's still there. I don't know if you can see it.
Whereabouts is Australia on that?
It's right down. You can see it. It's off to the...
And it's all just flat, and then the dome at the top is like the atmosphere, is it?
Yeah. Which goes into a whole nother thing, which is, why is our atmosphere still here? I have to get this argument out, because it's the one I love more than long distance photography.
Well, can you answer that? And also, why, when you get to the end of the sphere, don't you walk off the edge?
Oh, because you can't. There's nothing to walk off of. I mean, no matter where you go in this model, and again, you can look this up, and I don't know if you want to do screenshots right now. But no matter where you go in this model, you're going to run into ice and snow, and more ice and more snow, no matter which direction you have.
And what would happen if you did get to the edge? Just a wall?
Well, that's just it. One of the big misconception is that Antarctica is the end of the world. No, it's the beginning of the end. Meaning the Antarctic coastline isn't the edge. It's not like the Game of Thrones, this big ice wall, although it is a very high ice wall that comes off the ocean. It goes in thousands and thousands of miles. That's the big catch. The Americans were looking for this thing for the better part of 30 years. They sent down the youngest admiral in the history of the Navy, Admiral Byrd, and he flew around in planes for 30 years looking for this damn thing. And then when he found it, and of course they're never going to tell you that he found it, then they put in the Antarctic Treaty, the only unbroken treaty in the history of treaties, that says that no corporation can go down there and set up shop ever for the end of time. It's not even up for review.
What do you think is there? A wall?
Oh yeah, sure. Why not? Some sort of barrier. But remember, it would be thousands of miles inland from the beach. And so the Antarctic Treaty says that you can't go down there. I mean, yeah, you can go down there and spend 15,000 pounds and get your pictures taken with penguins and crap like that. but eventually you're not going to be able to run amok. And that made so much sense to me because this world is based on greed and money and power. And yet, in fact, if you want to start fracking in my backyard next week, you could make that happen if you're an oil and gas company. But those same companies aren't even allowed to talk about Antarctica. When have you ever seen that? Ever. But why does British Petroleum not go down to Antarctica? They can't.
So the way you described it, then it's kind of like the limits of the boundaries of a video game. So do you believe that we're in some kind of simulation?
Yep. Yeah, I do.
What
But most of the time,
what is your definition of a simulation?
my definition of simulation, well, I was in the video game industry for years. I mean, I used to play video games for a living. I was a video game producer, and they're all striving to be the same thing, which is a virtual reality that the player cannot break out of. Once you are immersed in it, there's no way to get out because you weren't the access to it, your memory of it was blocked. So, and by the way, when I got into this whole flat Earth model, I'd love to talk about simulations, but most people don't get it. Meaning, look, it's been 20 years since the Matrix, and people still don't understand the concept of the Matrix. But all the entertainment companies are trying to build in some sort of virtual reality. We've seen it in like Ready Player One and Free Guy and stuff like that. But it's almost impossible to do because you can't hook up the other senses. But we can build visually amazing worlds right now. I mean, you've seen them out there. The latest GTA, which I don't play because of the whole crime aspect, is a beautiful game. And we can do some wonderful, wonderful stuff. And yes, if it is flat and it is enclosed, it's probably virtual. No question. The double slit experiment is a big tell of that.
I don't think people in general have much of a problem with simulation theory. I think Elon Musk said it. It's quite mainstream, isn't it? This idea that it's actually very, very likely we live in a simulation. I think what people find hard is this flat world idea, because so many people in our simulation, if we are in a simulation, would have to be lying for that to be true.
Well, or NPCs, which is the concept behind Free Guy. But yeah, and by the way, a lot of people, again, what you just said, it's a paradox. Lots of people can understand now the virtual realities, but what people forget is video games are based on completely flat models, meaning there are no curves in video games. You just don't know any better because, it's like, you can't see the curve. And it's also it's not even a snow globe. It's boxed off. The skybox system is what they do with the ceiling. Like everything has right angles because computers can't understand circles. They hate them. They only deal with right angles, which is why pixels are perfectly square. So it's this weird paradox, in video games, like for example, we have to put in the distance. We have to put in haze in the distance, fake atmosphere. So you can't see too far, which also ties into what we're dealing with our real world. Well, our real world, which is you can't see too far because the atmosphere thickness. Lots of people will say, and I'm ignoring the chat, which is, why can't you see Japan from California? Why can't you see Europe from New York? And why can't you see Mount Everest from everywhere? Well, it's because you're not breathing in nothing. What we're breathing in right here is a gas. It's a couple gases. It's mostly nitrogen, a little bit of oxygen, and some trace gases. And that gets thickness, gains thickness over time. No different than water. Why, when you dive, if you've ever dived with anybody, at 200 feet down, you can't see the sun, even on a bright summer day. Same thing with the atmosphere.
So in the chat, they're asking about your religious beliefs, which ties into my next question, which is, if we are in a simulation, who designed it? And what is the purpose of it? I mean, what are we?
Okay. No, it's a good one. And I'm glad you guys got to that, which is who built it and why? It's probably the most important question. Most people get around the flat part, which is it can only be one of two answers. One is an older and more powerful civilization than ourselves, obviously, kind of like the movie Contact, or the divine. And at that point, you're kind of splitting hairs because one man's advanced tech is another man's deity. So do I think God is a programmer? Yeah, I do. Absolutely. We didn't invent programming. And some of the design features of this place are amazing. Do I believe in God? Yes, I do. Was I raised in a born-again evangelical Christian home? Yeah, I was. But I fell away from that when I got into tech, for obvious reasons, and then got pulled kind of not back into the church, but back into spirituality when I got into this. Because if it was created like this, then it was created by someone. And this just screams intelligent design. And science doesn't want to go there, which, it's the opposite of what science says. Science says you're on a little tiny spinning ball covered in a little bit of water and smoke flying through an impossible universe. And you're just left over from the Big Bang. And we say, no, it's probably the easier option, which is this. And it's 99.99% of the people believe the illusion, like the Matrix or the Truman Show or one of those things. And that's what you go with. I mean, and by the way, who's to say there is space? Why can't it just be this sitting on somebody's desk? Who's to say there aren't 7 billion little tiny things living in that thing right now? And one more thing, the planetarium argument, which is when you go into a planetarium, and I know that kind of dates me, you are looking at a projection on a screen. All this, does the moon look spherical? Yes. Can you land on it? No. Why not? Because it's just an image on the ceiling. And if you brought somebody in from, I don't know, an old school Amish community that's never seen tech in their life, that would just blow their minds, right? It's like, holy smokes. What is wrong with it? Why does the sky look like this? It's like, no, it's an illusion.
Mark, here's my issue with this. It feels like there are two separate theories. One is simulation theory and one is flat earth theory. Sure. And a lot of your arguments point to simulation theory, which I think a lot of people are right behind, that it could be real, that we could be just something on someone's desk. I think a lot of people do agree with that. But flat earth theory seems to suggest, just by its name, that we're not in a simulation, which a lot of people think as well, okay, we're not, but the earth is flat. And a lot of your, for example, the Van Allen belt trap, right? And you said this scientist just ran away. Well, I looked up literally for about 30 seconds before coming on here. I said, what's the Van Allen belt trap? I don't know what that is. It's a bit of radiation that if you go through, it can be dangerous, right? But there are huge gaps that you can go through that aren't as strong radiation. There are parts of it. And that took me 10 seconds. Now, who do we believe? You're right. I'm just believing that information, right? I understand that that's what you're probably thinking. But at the end of the day, as human beings, I suppose on the one hand, we have to be vigilant against, government could be lying to us and that kind of thing. But on the other hand, surely we go with the scientists of today. I mean, how sure are you, Mark, out of 100? How sure are you of flat earth theory?
Oh, 99.999%. I used to be only like 95% when I started this thing. But the reinforcement I got from the subject matter experts, which I interviewed on my channel, and they came to me unsolicited, they all said the same thing. And
but it's dangerous. 99.999% about anything is very dangerous, isn't it? That's, Dunning-Kruger levels. That's like, being the more sure you are suggests you want to believe it.
No. Come on, 0.0001%. Of course, anyone can be wrong on just about anything.
I mean, it's too sure. I mean, you're too.
Oh no. I don't think it's dangerous. I absolutely believe this. Believe this. No question. And by the way, when it comes to, I know when you said that people, the blurring of the lines, the only problem we have nowadays is virtual reality, because we've done it in pop culture for a number of years now, has become a very accepted thing because we've been beating people over the heads with it since the late 90s, right? Well, flat earth predates that by a long, long way. Just because we're now talking about it in different terms doesn't make it any less, valid. It just means that we now have different terms to describe it. And so, yes, I absolutely love to say, if it's virtual, it probably looks like this, because in our virtual worlds, the ones we create, this is what we build. Literally this, only it's squared off at the edges. It's no different.
So if we're in a simulation,
yes,
and the Matrix gave us a heads up on that, is Keanu Reeves in on it? And why is the designer a bit like, a serial killer who's not been caught and wants to throw a clue out there to try and reveal what the truth is?
I believe there's something else. Again, I don't know how much time we have. I believe there's another layer to this, which is, let's get to the why real fast, because a lot of people will ask, okay, what's outside of this? If this is where we live, then what's outside of this? What are they doing? Is the person, is the creator lurking about? Is it a big joke, or is it more of a novelty thing? Meaning, I believe that if this world is 99.9% conflict, which it is, it doesn't matter how beautiful, how powerful, how talented, how rich you are, you always have something to complain about. Always. No one's ever completely satisfied. Even monks sitting on a Tibetan mountaintop still have to deal with mortality. You can't escape it. If that's the case, then what is outside of here is an unlimited universe. And I think it is cyclical. I think the universe runs off of novelty, and which is why we always ask constantly, hey, what's new? What's new? What's new? I mean, how many people are going crazy because they're running out of things to watch on Netflix, for example? I'm watching stuff I wouldn't have touched 5 years ago.
Toss a coin to The Witcher. Are you watching The Witcher?
I've watched. Oh, please, I blew past that. I'm watching. I'm watching even stuff. It's like, okay, you watch The Witcher. Here's 5 other recommended shows. Well, okay, fine. I'll just watch those. But I do believe that what's outside of it is unlimited. Now, if you want to call it heaven or nirvana or Shambhala or whatever it is, fine. But I think that eventually what happens is you run out of novelty and you have to refresh. You have to gain perspective. So you come to a place like this. And it's limited lifespan, all sorts of different sufferings, line from the Matrix. Human beings seem to define the reality through misery and suffering, which is true. And then you go back.
Yeah. I just think, like I said, I think if it's simulation theory, then it doesn't look like anything. It's just a computer. It doesn't look like a
Don't be so sure, because remember, even when we build stuff, it doesn't matter how good a computer you are or how big the computer system is, you have to define the borders. You have to define the boundaries. Now, yes, you're right in the way that the whole wave particle thing. Whereas if you're in a computer simulation, if a tree falls in the forest and you aren't there to see it, does it still make a sound? Well, now we know with computer simulations, no, because it hasn't been rendered yet. There is no tree. It's just over there in blank code. It hasn't been drawn. There is no freaking tree.
Yeah.
But
it's a nice thought.
But does it exist as a border? Yes. GTA exists as a world. It has boundaries. Fortnite has boundaries. Everything has boundaries. Eventually, you have to build the boundaries in.
A viewer hang tight, wants to know if aliens are real. And earlier on, you mentioned about ancient civilizations.
Yes.
Do you think that there was a fusion of alien DNA with the ancient civilizations? If you do believe aliens are real?
Oh boy, I'll see if I can abbreviate this one. Do I believe the aliens are real? Yes, but I don't think do I think they're from Mars and Jupiter? No, I do not. British guy told me years and years ago, he goes, you want to see some weird stuff? Grab some night vision binoculars, start looking up at the sky. I did, way before Flat Earth. And it's like the sky is crawling with stuff. Do I think they are from Mars and Jupiter and Venus? No, I do not. I think they're just older versions of us. We are not the first people. You guys know this. We're not the first people to rent this apartment, not by a long shot. I mean, the Bosnian pyramids, the real pyramids, Puma Punku, the sunken cities off Japan and India. There's all sorts of remnants of previous civilizations. Our civilization only goes back unbroken, maybe 5,000 years. And there's stuff that's way, way older than that. So, but whoever's flying around up there, I think there's rules. If you want to look up some really cool stuff to your person over there that was asking about that, the greatest UFO sighting in history, our history, wasn't Roswell or 1899 Aurora, Texas, or any of that crap. It was 1561 Germany. Look up the 1561 Nuremberg event. It is brilliant. On a beautiful, clear day, 2 huge armadas come over the city and just start hammering at each other for a full hour. Not a cloud in the sky. And then a third faction comes in and scatters them. Big, giant black ship. They even talked about ancient aliens. They left out the black ship. And it's the coolest thing ever. And there weren't any photographs, but they drew the whole thing. They had a full hour to draw it. So there was wood carvings. They're like, oh, this is great. Eating their toast and Schnitzenglöben for breakfast, watching the whole thing. It's awesome. Yeah. So do I think they're here? Yes. Do I think they get to interact with us on a regular basis? No. Call it the Prime Directive out of Star Trek, which is you can't just land in the middle of Paris and start signing autographs and taking selfies. It would screw everything up. I think there's rules. I think there's protocols in place.
Andrew?
Yeah. I don't know. It's that thing, isn't it, with the conspiracy theorists? It's like you have to to believe one, you have to often believe a whole network of them. So it's also there's UFOs and there's this and there's that. Well, and like I said, it's that certainty. But you did say I didn't know this about you, but that you grew up in a very devout religious family, and surely it's possible, and I know it must be frustrating for you to hear this, I understand that, but it must be possible that you might be replacing those urges with other desires to look for the extraterrestrial or the extreme.
No. I'm not offended. You can say anything you want to me. I've had way worse since in the last 6 years, which is for me. I love the idea of an objective truth, but we live in a world, as you guys know from your stuff, we live in a world of layers and layers and layers of deceptions. People lie about stuff all the damn time, and with organizations, I mean, come on, we know there's conspiracies, where 3 or more people conspire to do stuff in let's see, business and politics and sports and entertainment, and even journalism and science. It happens all the time. So once you can get your head around that I grew up, again, very, very sheltered. So when I saw JFK in the theater for the first time in the early 90s, I was like blown away. I was like, wait, people in authority lie about stuff? I had no idea. And so now, I've looked into enough things. It's like, people will lie to protect their interests. So would they lie about all sorts of things? And would they lie about the shape of the world? Of course they would. And that's, by the way, that's one of the things that sold me on this. It's like, would I lie if I found out in 1960, if I was the government or whatever group you want to call them, the Illuminati or whoever it is, would I lie about this? Yeah, you bet I would. But the public wasn't even remotely ready in 1960. Are they more ready now? Yeah, kind of. I mean, we've given them enough hints, but 1960, no. So I agree. My qualification for a conspiracy is, would I improve on it, and would I say that the ends justified the means, no matter what the means were? And if I agree with it, that's it. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Totally would do it.
We only have time for one more question. It's come from Hugh Janus.
Yeah.
Do you believe, Mark, in time travel?
That's a tough one, because I love time travel. I love the concept of time travel. I fantasize about time travel. Any time travel movie that comes out, I will watch it. But do I think it's happened here with the whole Mandela effect thing? Maybe, because time travel is tricky. Any other movie will tell you, if you're talking about fragmenting parallel lines, or if you're talking about a singularity where it just keeps changing, the same timeline. I don't know. I don't believe we have the ability now, even though Nazi Germany was kind of toying with the idea towards the end of the war. That was the myth. But I don't think, if we are doing it, well, let's put it this way. If we pulled it off, you're never going to know. Because either it goes off into a completely separate timeline, which isn't tied to you, or it happens and changes your life in a way you're not going to know in the first place.
Do you think something like Doctor Who's TARDIS would be practical?
I love Doctor Who's TARDIS. I love that show. And no offense to Jodie Whittaker, she should have never ever been cast for the last couple seasons. It really wasn't her fault, because it was the writing. Honestly, I would have chosen Tom Ellis. Is that right? The guy that played Lucifer.
It was Tom Baker, wasn't there? Wasn't he one of them?
I don't know. I don't know.
Tom Ellis. Anyway, Tom Ellis. You might want to look at. He played Lucifer in the United States series Lucifer, about the devil helping Los Angeles Police Department, which is so weird. But no, I love the TARDIS. I love the concept, and I love the idea. If anyone sees a TARDIS flying around, please let me know. I'd love to. I'd love to talk to him.
Who asked that question, Sean? Mr. Janus.
I asked about time travel. I threw in about the TARDIS.
Oh, you threw in the TARDIS?
So
I was in love with it ever since Christopher Eccleston broke into the new series. I remember watching that on BBC America. I was going, wow. I never watched any of the early ones, and just fell in love with it.
Mark, we've run out of time. A huge thank you for coming on and being such a good sport with all these questions.
Oh yeah.
Could you please tell the viewers where they can find you and follow you and
It's easy, because I hate social media. So just type in Flat Earth Mark into YouTube. That's how you find me. My channel's on there. It's just my name, Mark Sargent. And there's a YouTube documentary, a Netflix documentary called Behind the Curve, which it's a fair look at what we did a couple of years ago, and a couple of books on Amazon, and you'll find me. It's not hard. I mean, all my information's out there. It's how you guys get a hold of me.
Cool.
All
Thanks,
right,
Mark.
you have a good rest of your evening in Washington, I think you said, and
I will
blast out some Nirvana.
Thanks.
Watch some Frasier.
Some Frasier. Kelsey, by the way, Kelsey's one of ours. I talked to him a couple of years ago.
Build a TARDIS.
He's a flat earther.
Yeah.
Kelsey Grammer.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, he's an alcoholic, wasn't he?
What's that got to do with it?
A lot.
Hey, no. Oh, by the way, and I sent this to you. Last thing, Novak's one of ours.
Again, not surprised.
All right.
No, I'm just kidding, Mark. Have a good one.
Cheerio.
Right. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye. Right. So in our new 4-hour format, what we do now, instead of just jumping onto the next guest, we have a little discussion with the chat and with each other. So please let us know in the chat what you thought about Mark. It did get very lively. We had we've got almost 500 plus simultaneously in the live stream right now.
Is that more than usual?
Well, since we got before we got shadow banned, we had, I think the most we ever had was tens of thousands. Yeah. After the shadow banning, it really fell down, and it seems to be coming back up now that we've been on our best behavior. So.
Then you got a flat earther on.
Now that we've got I think, looking at all the guests that we've interviewed over the years, it seems that the most controversial people attract the most attention. And sometimes, you feel bad because the attention can quite often be quite negative. But I've learned now to just try and absorb that and go with it, because it's so important to get the different viewpoints from people. That's how we learn the most. We
pushed back, didn't we? We gave a bit of pushback, and we're still polite. That's the thing. It's like, people, why not be polite to a guy who I think is off his rocker, but be polite.
We pushed back with British wit.
Oh man, what do you think?
Lauren,
did he convince you at all? Oh, go on.
Lauren in the chat's asking about the news about the M trial. So we have been reporting on the M trial still, but that we cannot do on YouTube anymore, because I got banned twice from YouTube. I lost my entire channel over that case, and we will be discussing it, I think, around the 8 o'clock mark on Patreon. Link to that is in the description box. Someone else has asked, where's Jen? Right, so we have a whole team of co-hosts now. The regular Attwood Unleashed co-host is Andrew Gold. I was filming with Jen yesterday. We did podcasts with Posh Pete, more Tug of War, more Stephen Graham.
Can I meet Jen?
Absolutely. And we've got, on Thursday, I'm filming with Jen again. We've got a really interesting guy just got out of prison, and we got 2 dominatrixes, separate podcasts with them. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, it's all happening, isn't it?
I'm not convinced the Earth is flat, Andrew. In the chat, put a 1 if you think the Earth is flat. A nice flat 1.
Oh, not this again.
Put a curvy 2 if you think the Earth is spherical. Let's take a poll on this. Put a 3 if Mark, change your mind if you do now believe that the Earth is flat on the basis of what you heard Mark say today. And also, you could add a 4 if you think we are in a simulation.
Oh, it's so complicated now. Oh, you're getting lots of numbers though.
Oh, let's see. So
I've forgotten it all again.
1. We've got a flat 1. We've got a few flat 1s. Oh, we've got plenty of 1. We've got curvy 2s coming in. 3. There's a 3. That's great.
The thing is, did you see what I was trying
to? Quite a variety of numbers there. It's interesting.
Did you see what I was trying to say? Which was, I felt like he was doing 2 separate theories. One that is quite well accepted, being simulation theory, and another that's flat Earth, which is a totally different thing.
Isn't that a strategy in philosophical argumentation, whereby you've got a general theory that people don't agree with, so you insert a more agreeable theory to try and get the whole accepted? I can't remember the word for it, but I believe it's a tactic in argumentation.
Man, I hate stuff like that, because you want to look it up, and how do you put into Google theory that when it's not the theory to make another theory? It's just impossible to find, isn't it? Maybe someone in the chat will tell us what that's called. But yeah, so I was going along with a lot of the stuff about simulation theory. It's like, well, that's very possible that we're on someone's table somewhere in a little globe or something. But if we're not, got a few 4s. What was that again? Matrix?
Simulation.
Yeah.
And the Matrix is getting redone, isn't it? After 20 years, he's hardly aged, as he Keanu, handsome chap.
You're like, what? The Matrix is getting redone. It was like the biggest story for 6 months. It came out like 2 months ago. I haven't seen it, but those.
Oh God, that was when I was in bed. I was in bed. With the virus.
I'm not good with
New
pop
Matrix
culture.
completely whizzed past my head. I've gone back in time.
Oh my God, Sean! Honestly.
On that note, it's time for me to bow out.
Yeah, get out of here.
I'll be back in 30, 40 minutes or so with Dan Wise Part 3. Yes, indeed. Do you want to bump me out?
Okay, go. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
All right, it's just me. I'm taking over. No, Monica. Bija Misar, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing well, Andrew. So nice to meet you. Where's
Really
Sean?
nice to meet
he
you.
left us.
Yeah, he didn't want to talk to you. No, Sean and I sort of he's upped it to 4 hours. So I come in and co-host, and then we sort of do a bit, and then I'll come out, and then he goes in, because otherwise our backs hurt.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, I'm really happy to meet you, and I'm happy to be on the show. I love your show,
thank
by
you.
the way. So.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it's Sean's show. I was telling him before, I just make it slightly handsomer. Not really, but that's only funny because he was still listening. I can see, but now he's gone, so now it just sounds
he's
rude.
gone.
Yeah. Okay. Well, he's gone now. So, tell me just a little bit about your background and stuff, and yeah, let's start there. A bit of background.
Well, I'm Colombian American. I was born in Texas, but my parents are both from Cali, Colombia. And
I've been there.
Oh, you have? Did you like it?
Yeah, it's all like dancing. Cali, they love it.
Yeah, they do. They love other stuff, but yeah, they definitely like dancing. So I am a TV reporter. I've been a TV reporter all my life. I started broadcasting in Spanish in local television here, and then transitioned to English as an Al Jazeera English correspondent for a while, where I kind of shifted into conflict quite soon.
Okay.
Covered the Middle East a lot, and drugs, conflicts, hostile areas, earthquakes, hurricanes, etc. Like as a breaking news reporter. And then I'm still a host like yourself, for Vice, PBS, loads of different people. But I'm transitioning away from that as a documentary filmmaker, producer.
Okay, really cool.
That's my life.
Sí, okay. ¿Quieres hablar en castellano?
No, I mean, whatever you prefer, or your
I just wanted to show off.
I
just wanted to show off that I could speak Spanish. Yeah, that's all that was. I wasn't going to really suggest we speak in Spanish.
That's very good, Andrew. I'm happy you can speak Spanish. It definitely helps if you're covering Latin America.
Yes. Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, you do have to be able to speak the Spanish, don't you? Otherwise, yeah, you're right. I'm really impressed by all your work, by the way. I've been looking through your show reel and stuff. Man, some of the stuff, it's really like I get very scared when I'm doing these things, and like it's something we often don't think about when you're watching the TV. You just see a presenter and you're like, oh, well, there they are. Now, I've not done things half as scary as what you've done, and still my legs turn to jelly. Have you ever had that feeling with the jelly in your legs?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, I'm actually quite a wimp in real life. People don't think that, but when it's your job, you kind of disconnect, right? You're thinking it's a job. I'm in a war zone. It's a job, and you kind of become like a different persona almost, and you don't think about anything. You're almost like a caricature, of yourself. You're like like an actor in a movie, and you're so removed. So I don't feel. But I'm definitely I'm a germaphobe. I'm a hypochondriac, and I covered like Ebola. People are like, how do you go into these areas? And being so scared of these things. So I don't know. I guess it's a personal thing. When you want to prove yourself something too, so you gravitate towards these impossible situations without even thinking about it. But yeah, my mom and my dad definitely don't like it that much. I mean, they suffer a lot.
When I got into journalism, my parents always said to me as well, like, not war zones and drugs, just anything except that. But yeah, you do it. And I know what you mean. As soon as the camera's on, you're like this different person, and it's not just like being less scared. I can be like funnier. I can take more risks with the things I say. Really weird thing. You become another person. Hey, tell me a bit about fentanyl and the reports you've been doing on that and what it is.
Well, I was fascinated. Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's kind of a synthetic version of heroin, but much, much stronger. So for people who like the heroin high, if you will, like fentanyl is like times 100. and it's all synthetic. So we are shifting away from what's called like crop-based drugs, like cocaine comes from a leaf. People don't know this sometimes, like the coca plant. Heroin comes from poppy flowers. And now all these drugs that Mexicans and other people are manufacturing, you can do them essentially in like a makeshift lab. Like all you need is like a barrel with like chemicals and you put stuff in it and you make it. It's super dangerous, super, super strong. And I was really interested and, kind of started hearing about it with all these overdose deaths in America. Very sad. Loads and loads of people overdosing with fentanyl. A lot of people don't know what it is. A lot of people think it's heroin. And sometimes it's laced with fentanyl. Well, it turns out that even cocaine is now being laced with fentanyl. Like normal drugs, like, Xanax and Percocet, they're being laced with fentanyl. So it's not like the drugs you get in a legit pharmacy, but like if you get black market drugs in America, you have to sometimes because, the healthcare system is so complicated and you need prescriptions, blah, blah, blah. Like we interviewed a woman who's a congresswoman. Her son took a Xanax that was laced with fentanyl and he died. Like that's how strong and crazy it is. So me and Zach Fannin, we went to Sinaloa to see where it was made. And we did some reports for PBS, which is like the public American, station, PBS NewsHour. Yeah. And it was fascinating. I mean, like, again, the moment you can manufacture something out of precursors like chemicals and you just know how to cook them and you add them together, they're making tons of money and it's very deadly. It can be laced into everything. And that's like the new drug, sadly, because it is leading to a lot of deaths.
Yeah. Is that what people are fighting over then? Gang wars?
Yes, I would think. I mean, cartels in Mexico, they fight over control of the territory and international drug routes. Like they're at that level where like, it's not like little gang, turf in like a city. It's like the world, the hemisphere. They're fighting over, control of Mexico, routes into the United States via California, or if you go to Texas, then you have other cartels that control that route, etc. But yeah, essentially fentanyl is a big market. And just to give you an example, like I had no idea about all of this, but like 11 pounds of it would cost like $15,000 in a city in Mexico where they're making it. Once you bring it over to America, it's 100,000. So you cross the border, which is like literally like you take a car, you drive 3 hours, you're in the States, and the value goes 10 times.
Wow.
And you have 100,000 US dollars. So
but crossing the border,
yeah,
that's the hard part. Presumably you get searched by people.
Super hard, exactly. Well, I mean, they have a ton of American citizens doing it now, which people don't know about. Normally the drug mules were like Mexican people working for the cartels. Now it's like Americans, they just put them in the car. And that's another thing. Like it's so tiny and so potent, you can hide it easily. It's not like, marijuana back in the day, you had like backpacks of marijuana and mules just like carrying the backpack. Now, a tiny bag of fentanyl is worth like a ton of money and you could just kind of hide it anywhere in your car. So yeah, it's really changed the drug game. And I think that's like the business. And that's why I was really interested because, I mean, I'm sure you as well, like as journalists, we kind of like following trends and what's going on. You become kind of curious and obsessed with these things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's why I'm really interested in like learning about the behind the scenes journalism and why you don't feel so much fear in these moments and that kind of thing. I'm also interested in if you do a lot of reporting on drugs and drug wars and that kind of thing, without incriminating anyone, do members of your team try it? Do you get involved in those things? Has that kind of thing ever happened?
That's a good question. I mean, I think they do in some shows they do, but they're open about it. Like they would do it on camera. I'm very like old school journalist. I don't touch any of that. And I don't want my team, we're just very much like the messenger, you're there, you're an observer, you're trying to report in the situation. I don't believe in becoming like trying drugs and becoming a part of it that like on a personal basis. I just want to be, super neutral, but And that's interesting because I don't know if that's happened to you maybe where I think it's a beautiful profession because you kind of like, you're so neutral, you're like not judging anyone, I can be talking to someone who's killed 100 people and dissolved them in acid. And I'm like, okay, well, why do you do this? And, I think everybody does things for a reason. Like we all kind of trying to, just to cope in life and do the best we can, to survive or this or make money or whatever. So I like the like not judging and being observer and being neutral part of it.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah,
but,
I love that as well about journalism, because there's so much activism now replacing journalism.
Yes.
I find,
Yes.
and it's really nice to be able to go and just talk to someone. I mean, there's a word we're not allowed to say on the YouTube channel, but those people who are attracted to younger people. Sorry. I've just done an investigation into them for a publication, and so that was the most testing that it's been, talking to those kinds of people. Have you ever had that really tested? Are there experiences you can think of in your career where you've been with someone and you did want to moralize and to judge?
Yeah, I think all the time. I think it happens all the time. I mean, when you go to like war zones or conflict zones, or you report on people like drug traffickers who are not good people, at all, of course, they've caused a lot of suffering and they've killed a lot of people, you're kind of wondering, why am I doing this? Am I giving them a platform? Like, that's something I always, I'm kind of conflicted by. Why am I like giving a microphone to this like lunatic or this awful like, why are we not? And a lot of people come up to me and they're like, why don't you interview good people and showcase like what good people are doing? And
It's
I'm
boring,
like,
though.
yeah, I know we should. Well, I don't know if it's boring. I just feel like you have not a calling, but you have something in life that you're good at, or you gravitate towards it. I don't know why. Like, my niche is that kind of reporting. I don't know why. I don't even know if, it just happened to be. So that's what I cover. I mean, but like, I see friends who report on arts and music, and I think that's pretty cool too. Like, would I want to do that? Maybe, but I don't know if I'll be good at it. And I have like, you kind of start taking a path, right? And it takes you deeper and deeper.
Yeah. What took you deeper? Do you know what it is? Have you thought much about that?
Yeah, I have. I mean, so when I started reporting in English, I was thinking like, why are people like are British and American and other people telling the world about my country? Like, I'm Colombian too, and I speak English. Like, I want to be a reporter, and I want to, like, I know the story so well. Like, I want to start reporting. That's how I kind of started. And then I realized that it was just a lot more complex and stuff. And then I was like, okay, I want to go to other countries and report on that, and kind of go to the Middle East, etc. I mean, I think like Latin American people have like, they're really street smart, and it helps with reporting. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. I mean, you've lived in Latin America. They're very street smart, and like, it helps. And I thought like, you develop skills and you start seeing like, I started seeing my like producers sending me to conflict areas and stuff. So I was like, oh, maybe like I'm good at it or whatever, or I have an instinct to find the story, or to find the story, or to find a scoop, or I mean, I don't know, the British are really good at that. They're so competitive, the media, they're great at like finding scoops and all that. So I think that's why I kind of got into it. And yeah, I mean, once you find something you're good at, I mean, the world is so competitive, I guess.
Yeah. I remember being in Medellin, and what you're saying about people saying to you, can't you write about nice things? So I lived in Medellin for a year, and I can totally see that, because Colombians sometimes can be very offended if you go over to them and you say, tell me about Escobar, or the other one is, tell me about, can we say, I don't know, just things you inhale the white stuff and the green stuff, or the other one is plastic surgery, of course, as well. And I think they're just so tired. And so is that who you've had that reaction from, Colombians saying like, hey, say something nice about our country?
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. And I totally understand as well, because it is your country, and you've suffered, and you've suffered. Every Colombian has suffered because of the conflict. I mean, I think that's fair enough. It's fair to say. And then you have like these vultures who are like reporting on it. But I feel as well that journalists, like, it's our duty to report on the dark too. I don't know. I mean, I see their point. I can totally like kind of step out of my shoes and be like, yeah, this kind of sucks. But we do want to shine a light on something that's not reported, and that's often like dark and harder to get access to. So, I feel conflicted about it. I mean, I do want to report on nice, people who are doing good things, at some point. I mean, I do think like I've seen so much horrible things that I want to kind of turn the page at some point.
Yeah, I understand that. It's as you get older as well, and you want to just.
Yeah.
When you're younger, you've got that edge, and you want to see the edgy stories. And you get older,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, there's got to be some happiness somewhere that I can write about.
Yeah,
don't know.
totally. Or you become like, you kind of lose faith, you know, you're like, why am I doing this? Am I really making a difference? Like I chose this life, which is full of sacrifices because I wanted to make a difference, but am I making a difference? I don't know. You know, you kind of get really conflicted about things.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I have those same. I'm really happy to hear you say that, because I often ask journalists those things, because I feel exactly the same way. Always conflicted. Are we platforming people? And I've spoke to Sean about that before. We had this flat earther on, you know, and it's just like, are we giving him a platform?
I heard a little bit about him.
Yeah, you know, it's, as far as I'm concerned, ridiculous, but I wanted to be polite to him and give him a fair whatever. But it is something that, I always struggle with as well. Like, are we platforming them? Is this a good thing? And I'm never going to have as much information as they do about their topics. So it's really tough. Tell me, I want to hear some like stories from your time. I want people to get a look into what it's like being you, or being this kind of investigative journalist. I mean, there was something about the Knights Templar cartel in Mexico.
Oh yeah, that's I mean, it's actually, you know, like when I talk to people, they're always like, oh, you seem so happy and, you know, sometimes funny or whatever. You know, you're like, you know, you think of a war correspondent or conflict reporter or whatever, as someone like, you know, so kind of serious and stuff. And I'm like, no, I mean, you know, the life of crime, first of all, in Latin America, like organized crime, you know, I joke with my colleagues, it's like disorganized crime. Like, you know, you see some things that are like so funny too sometimes, you know, it's like a lot of the Latin American folklore kind of, you know, is in these things. And I was working for Vice at the time. I still work with them, and we had a very junior producer. We were like going to interview or going to film inside this ranch that belonged to one of the most feared drug traffickers, El Chayo, Nazario Moren. And we're like, you know, he was killed, but, you know, his ranch was like there, and we got there, but the producer had made a fatal mistake, which is that he had read an article thinking it was like this month's article, and it was like 2 years old, and he hadn't seen the year. The ranch was abandoned, and, you know, I was just like landed in Mexico, went there. It turned out that it was an active site of the Knights Templar cartel. It was like their den, like their operation.
Oh my
and
God.
We just like drove out, you know, in a van to like the worst area possible. So we were detained, and they checked our footage, and they made us delete it, and they kind of, you know, questioned us, and it was very, you know, unpleasant. It wasn't like bad, you know, or anything, but it could have been potentially. And that's just kind of like the funny, weird things that happen when you're a reporter. You know, it's not all like, I mean, there's a lot of really dramatic, terrible things that are scary, but there's also like really funny, kind of surreal, absurd situations that happen when you're covering these beats. I mean, I don't know. It's definitely, it's like a strange life, you know. Definitely gotten in trouble, like, you know, with governments. I'm banned from going to Venezuela. Like, I'm on a red list. You know, you know, because I'm Colombian and American and whatever, like reporting here and there, they just kind of scapegoat on not only me, like I'm not special or anything. A lot of journalists have been banned from going there. But
weren't you accused of being a spy?
Yeah, that's when it happened on national television by like one of the most feared men in Venezuela. I don't know if you've heard of him, Diosdado Cabello, who is like a huge drug trafficker, by the way, head of the army, de facto head of the assembly, kind of President Maduro's right-hand man. Some people even argue he's like the power behind everything. So, you know, very unpleasant character. Went on TV and said I was a spy because I don't know, like they didn't like my reporting or whatever. But you know, that we got into a pretty serious situation in Egypt as well. When I was part of Al Jazeera, my producer was in prison for like 3 years in Egypt. The offices were closed when I was there, and then, you know, my colleagues were detained and sent to prison. So yeah, I mean, definitely being a journalist is you know, it's interesting to say.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard. It's a hard life as well, I guess.
Is it quite cool to see that Maduro's right-hand man has accused you of being a spy on national TV?
Sorry, Say again?
Is it quite cool? Is it quite like, oh, Maduro's right-hand man guy has just called me a spy on TV?
Well, I was like, why does he even care about me? Exactly. I'm like, who am I? I'm just a journalist. Terrible, very, very scary, very frightening. I hate spies. I mean, as journalists, we want to be the opposite of spies. We want to, we don't want secrets, and so we want to uncover the truth. Like, I don't work for any government. I would never, ever work for any government. Like, I'm very old school journalist. Like, you have a career, you search for the truth, you try to be neutral, like the stuff we were talking about. Yeah, I mean, I know it's been glamorized to be a spy and all that, but I think I was terrified, and it's really affected me in a bad way because like I work with people who are powerful criminals, and some of them read that and they doubt you immediately. They're like, oh wait, is she like going to use this information for like a government? And that's obviously that's not a good thing and doesn't help with access and stuff. So,
but surely nobody believes like Maduro people.
I don't think so. Yeah, you're right. Exactly. Especially now. I mean, they've really become like ridiculous. It's like ridiculous. It's like but it's sad. Like my family comes from the border with Venezuela, so I could be Venezuelan. In a way, like I feel for that nation. It's so sad. Like one of the wealthiest nations, the most beautiful people, so nice, so kind, just driven to extreme poverty by incompetent leaders who just cling on. It's like something out of the Middle East, really, like like Syria or something.
Yeah, after my year in Colombia, I was in Argentina for 7 years, and it was noticeable year after year that you would see more and more Venezuelan immigrants who were like doing working class jobs, who would say that I was a doctor back in Venezuela and I was a lawyer and that kind of thing. And it was so sad to see how they had fallen because of the government, and it was very difficult for them to get back into their lives in Argentina. So you had family. So your family's from Cali and also from like near the border of Venezuela up north.
Yeah, like my dad's family comes from that area, like near Cucuta. I don't know if you've been, but like well, Venezuela and Colombia were one country, for briefly, and Ecuador under Simón Bolívar, the founding father, we were one country.
That's why they have the same flags, nearly.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know that. It's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about your former brother-in-law.
Yeah. So I mean, my sister was married to this guy who's a politician, respected in Colombia. His father. So it's an interesting story because his father, Rodrigo Lara, was the justice minister who kind of paved the way for extradition. And that was a huge thing in Colombia. That still stands, by the way. Like Colombia still extradites drug traffickers. Like the Cali cartel founders, the brothers, the Rodriguez Orejuela, are in Miami currently, and loads of people are extradited. So, whereas Mexico is like a little bit more proud about like, we're going to judge our own criminals, like, don't worry. Colombia started sending everybody to America because they would think they could escape here. They have so much money and influence, they could get out of prison and escape, et cetera, et cetera. So this man paved the way for that with Pablo Escobar. That was like the first, big case, and he was killed because of it. And my former brother-in-law was a little boy, and I like to tell this story because like the cartel thing has been glamorized, and it was really sad and awkward so many times that I was with him, socially, and people didn't know who his father or who he was, abroad, and they'd be like, oh man, Pablo Escobar is so cool, don't you think? And he was like, well, no, he murdered my father. I didn't have a father because of that. And it goes back a little bit to what you and I were talking about, like Colombians saying, don't glamorize that. Like we've suffered, like loads of innocent people have suffered. Pablo Escobar would blow up planes, just to kill one person and then kill, everybody who was in the plane, for instance. So yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to see, like, it's very important to like feel for the victims and be a little bit on the victim's side. We tend to forget when we, like giving this platform to these criminals and whatever, but I would just like as I've matured and like you said, as you get older, you think like, no, I have to really kind of think more about the victims. How would they feel about that? You know?
Yeah. I
For all
remember
these people who like, yeah, sorry.
I was just going to say, for like friends of mine would about my age. I'm 32. Yeah, it was a few years ago though. But they said when they were younger, they used to have to put, I think it was it like tape, like sellotape on their windows in case the windows exploded, so it would go outwards.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't remember that at all, but it doesn't surprise me because the drug war here was so much like terrorism, you know, in a way that it's not really happened in Mexico, which is interesting, you know. Colombia in the 80s, like these, like, and that was precisely because of these politicians. You know, when extradition became like a card against these drug traffickers, they were like, we're going to go all out. This is war. We're going to put car bombs, you know, in front of, you know, the attorney generals or, you know, the police or whatever. You know, they would like target civilians on purpose because they were so afraid, you know, to retaliate Congress and the government and what they were doing. So this was really like narco terrorism. It's political. Like now drug traffickers are way more like savvy and they almost like don't want to do that because why would you do it? You know, you don't want to like kill a bunch of people and attract all this attention and, you know, put car bombs or whatever. Like, so it's very like they kill their enemies now pretty much, mostly, not necessarily, but, you know, that's what we've seen in Mexico, for instance. You know, it's a lot more low profile and really targeted violence, whereas back then with Escobar, it was like all out.
Man,
and average Colombians were like victims. Yeah, war. Yeah, I mean, you know, I was too young, but yeah, I mean, definitely that's what you hear, right? I mean,
so you were born in
parents remember and
Texas,
stuff.
and did you spend a lot of time in Colombia growing up?
Yeah, I grew up here and then kind of traveled a lot and lived in different places. So like I lived in France for a long time and went to school and university there. And yeah, I've moved around a lot.
Moi aussi.
Now,
On peut parler en français pour frimer.
Oui, on peut frimer alors. En espagnol et français, quoi d'autre tu parles?
Portugais. Allemand. Allemagne.
Wow.
Ja, ich kann Deutsch sprechen, wenn du willst. I'm into my languages. I love I'm into all languages.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, they're fun, aren't they? What annoys you more?
Super
go
useful.
on. Yeah,
it's useful, right? Like I mean, like my friends, I've lost it sometimes, somehow, but it's definitely helped. I report a lot in Africa, like West Africa. Reported a lot there.
Oh, that's so cool. I'm like jealous of a lot of the stuff you've done. It's really, really cool. Like I love to see, but tell me, I was going to ask before, like what annoys you more, people glamorizing Escobar or people spelling Colombia wrong?
Definitely people glamorizing Escobar. Yeah. I couldn't care less about people spelling Colombia wrong. I
people
know it's
get
a big
annoyed
thing too, but no, you're right. They do. They do. I'm like, I don't know. I don't really care.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, you're right. I don't know why it hit some chord here. There was even like a campaign about spell it correctly, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Which I thought was
so.
like, okay, whatever. Yeah, no, I do get upset. Not upset. I see the other side of glamorizing a lifestyle that means that you're going to kill a lot of people. I mean, that's just, you know, you're going to kill everybody who stands against you.
Yeah.
There's a problem with that lifestyle for sure.
There's something very ugly as well about American and British tourists going over to Colombia and being like, hey, you know, Escobar, where can I get some white stuff to put up my nose? And, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, whatever. Everybody does what they want, you know, and if they want to come, but, you know, beware, a lot of Colombians were not going to be happy with this.
Yeah.
And it's understandable, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, you have to respect the country you go to as a tourist, as a general rule. I mean, otherwise you're kind of a douche, right? I mean, in general terms.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I'm talking about everything in general. Respect. Like, you know, even as a journalist, like when I go to the Middle East, I cover my hair. You know, I'm always trying to be respectful and mindful of the local culture and what people think there, because that's just the normal thing to do.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. The big thing in Argentina rather is about America, like that there's not North or South America. They get very upset about that, and when people call them the United States, when they call it America, that upsets them.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But Argentina's a weird, different case because all Latin Americans don't like Argentina. Did you know that?
Yeah, they're
In
like
general,
the
yeah.
America. They're like the states of
They're
the
like
North.
they're like
They're Britain.
Yeah, they're like, oh my God, you guys are like so sad that you're stuck in South America where you think you're European. Like that's kind of the underlying thought.
They're like the
So
Britain
it's really
of
funny.
Europe, the outsiders, like
They're
who think
very
they're too good for it.
European. Exactly. They're almost like, why are we not in Europe and attached to Europe? I mean, that's not fair. You know, I have loads of Argentinian friends that are not like that, but that's kind of like what people think in general.
Yeah. I'm going back there tomorrow for a couple of weeks.
Wow.
Yeah,
Lucky.
see my girlfriend's
Lucky.
family.
So it's summer there.
Yeah, it's 40 centigrade. I don't know what that is in. If you maybe you do know centigrade.
40 is like 100, right? It's like super hot.
40
like
C2F.
super hot.
104. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very
too much.
There's summer, so that's gonna be great, I guess. No, unless you like the winter.
I'm British. I like the cold, but I have to go because my girlfriend's already out there. And then she told me the other day, like, she showed me the weather and it was like 40 degrees. And I thought, oh no, I can't. I don't want to go, but I do because I want to see her.
No, but I think it'd be great.
Family.
Yeah, I mean, Argentina is great. I love that country. I really do.
Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? Tell me about your work with MS-13.
So I've done a lot of stuff around gangs, like in El Salvador and Honduras, where both countries have MS-13. I've spent a lot of time with them. Super interesting. Like that's like a completely different universe, right? Because it's a lot of kids who come out from like extreme poverty and don't have father figures. Most of them, interestingly enough, like have been brought up by their grandmas, so they just like at home alone and do whatever, and they don't really have like a strict family, you know, because in Latin America, I mean, families is like a big thing, and they're very much like abandoned, you know, in very poor areas and don't have many opportunities. So the gang absorbs them and gives them like an identity, a salary, you know. I mean, it's really interesting, like from like a sociological, I guess, aspect is like super interesting. Very, very vicious, very young and vicious. Like they can behead people, behead bodies and dump, you know, like different parts of the body, like in different places and stuff. Like they often do like really horrible things, but they're also like super immature. like, you know, it's like the MS-13 and their rival is 18th Street. Or Barrio 18 or Barrio 18 or whatever. So there's like numbers, right? Like there's the 13 and the 18. So every 13th of the month, one gang like attacks the other. Yeah, and they do like really silly things, like really childish things. It's like major, you know, and I'm not like laughing at them, but it's like, you know, major criminal gangs and the people are like scared of. Remember the whole Trump thing, like MS-13 is coming to America and the caravans and stuff. But these guys were like, you can wear red, you can't wear blue. Like they have colors and they have signs, like you need to like this. It's like, you know, it's like really, it's really funny. It's super interesting. But like I said, I mean, they're also very capable of being very, very brutal. Yeah, it's been really interesting to hang out with them, to find out, you know, what they think and what they do, and just it's very sad as well, because I do think it's like, you know, inequality in the end and poverty is like the root cause of so many things. Like if you're a really successful criminal in a way, it's like a failure of your government, because a lot of them are really smart. Like if you would have put them like, you know, proper schooling and everything, these kids would have been amazing, you know, scientists and, you know, you name it.
Wow. Do you come across many, I'm just thinking like, in your time with all these gangsters and stuff, do you come across many women?
You do. And they're very scary. I think like for a woman to do well in a man's world of crime and criminals, you have to prove yourself so much more. So they're very ruthless. And sometimes they have to be more ruthless than men to earn men's trust and respect, you know, in a macho, sexist society. So yes, I've interviewed women who are hit women, hit men, hit women. I don't know how you call it, like hired assassins, right? I've met women who are cartel bosses. I've met women who are people smugglers. Super interesting, very professional, very ruthless. Yeah, you come across women a lot.
Yeah, because I guess the
Women
stereotype
that are, like,
is men.
part of their, yeah, it's men. Like, so you come across women who are like doing really well in the underworld business, or you come across women that are like partner, someone's wife, someone's girlfriend, like that too, I guess.
Right,
which,
of
you know,
course.
it's also interesting. I mean, it's not everybody gravitates towards men that are, you know, like dangerous and stuff like that too. It's a specific kind of woman who wants to, you know, be part of that sphere. So I find it fascinating. I mean, like, again, I try not to judge.
Yeah. What would? How do you choose these concepts? I know this one we were just talking about with MS-13 is going to go out on Vice. Then what next? How do you sit down and go, right, what am I going to do, and who am I going to sell it to? Who will I work with?
So I have, because I'm freelance, that's a good question. I mean, I have different kinds of, there's different ways where you can work as a freelance person. So if I'm hosting something, for instance, I mostly get calls from people saying, we have a team, we have a sub, you know, you just have to kind of host. So you're kind of a piece that's incorporated into a team, and you're hired like that. Or sometimes, you know, you kind of assemble your own team and you do everything and sell it to someone, or sometimes like you pitch something and they fund you if, you know, the network or whatever likes it. So there's like a million ways of going about.
That's cool.
I like to work on my own thing, but, you know, sometimes what interests me doesn't interest other people. So, you know, you kind of have to, you know, pay your bills and do whatever to.
Are you like on Twitter, like looking for like gang stuff that's happening?
No. Well, I mean, I do follow like the news a lot, especially because I was like a breaking news reporter. So yeah, I guess sometimes you kind of like see maybe there's a story here, maybe there's a story there, you know, like an example of something that happened recently that caught my eye was a brutal massacre in Ecuador inside a prison. So one gang turned against another one and like beheaded a bunch of people, like crazy violence, you know. And then I was like, well, you know, there's definitely something going on there that people are not reporting on, right? I mean, how did these gangs become so powerful, and why are they killing it? You know, so you do see like the news, but the news never goes, you know, sometimes doesn't really go that deep. So, you know, in order to go and meet people from Sinaloa, like you have to have really solid access. And this is something that so we go more like deep, you know, as I guess as freelance people, we have that luxury to go deep and not just kind of bounce around doing different stories and covering like a million things, you know. You become more specialized.
Yeah.
Or try.
Yeah, you become that person with links to all the gangsters in the Americas and the Middle East as well.
Yeah, I mean, you rely always on a bunch of people, like local people, you know, who are very brave and have great connections. Like, I'm not saying, you know, that's my concept necessarily. You know, I definitely work with a ton of people that without them, I couldn't do half of what I've done. And then they keep you safe too and stuff. Like, you know, what they call fixers, right? Like, I don't know if it's like local producers. Local journalists are the bravest often. And you know what, they stay behind too. So you have to think of them and their families because they're the ones who stay behind.
Oh my, there's so many ethical complications, aren't there? Wow. What
there's a lot.
about tell us a bit about First Wave and how you were involved, because it was shortlisted for Best Documentary at the Oscars.
Yes, it's been shortlisted. We're all very excited. I mean, the director, Matthew Heineman, is a good friend of mine. Is a really good friend, and I've worked with him a lot. He was behind Cartel Land, which was like a major reference of a documentary. I'm not sure if you watched it, but I highly recommend it. You know, it was kind of the first, the really big documentary about cartels in Mexico and what happens kind of on the other side of the border, in America too. So yeah, we worked together on a Showtime series about immigration and human trafficking called The Trade, and that was so it aired on Showtime. And right when we were it was really weird because as we were launching it in America, COVID hit. Like I'm talking about like March, it was literally hit the US and New York. And most of the crew is from New York. The crew that was working on this Showtime series. So we're all like friends and a big family almost. And so we were like, okay, let's do something on COVID because, this is happening now and everything's kind of closing. Let's do something on COVID. So they brought me as part of the team. And I didn't, I didn't like stay in the project for that long, but it was long enough that it was, quite a strong experience. I mean, the film basically, follows COVID as it hit America, as it hit New York specifically from inside a New York hospital, which was the biggest COVID hospital in the world. So it was horrific to be there at that time. Very scary, nobody knew this virus. And and for me, like, it was weird because I literally just landed. I mean, I'd been in Africa covering Ebola like 3 months before. So in a way, I was kind of like used to the hazmat suits and like, cleaning the equipment and all these things because I learned it in Africa. But in another way, it was just really traumatic because, it's not Ebola, it's not as deadly, but it was just kind of like, it took the world, well, we all know now, it's like fast forward and we all know what happened. So yeah, well, I mean, it's a documentary that I'm super proud of.
Wow. And congratulations on the nomination. How did you feel when you found out about that?
About The Trade?
Yeah.
Very happy. Very happy. I mean, it was such a good show. Like, I really feel like, I'm not just saying it because it was kind of, it was a main part of it, but a big part of it. But it took my life for like 2 years. I was working on this show, right? So we were like, me and this team, we were like migrating with people from like Honduras to the US back and forth. We did it like 7 times, and we're like being smuggled with other migrants and we're like climbing on trains, not knowing really how to organize this and film this. And it was like super interesting to, kind of get into the world of smugglers and what they think and their networks. And it was like, I guess it was dangerous. There's like some cartel connections and they didn't want us to film, etc. So it was like, that's something that I really like about working for big networks like Showtime, and these people, like, when they bet on journalism and they have so many like resources, it's almost like a dream for us because you can go somewhere and really like spend your time and you're giving the means to do it, right? Which is rare, sadly, right? Like, we have scouting trips where you go without a camera and you're not going to use anything. You're just scouting. And I was like, wow, people do that. Like, in my past life as like a TV reporter, exactly. It's like you're going to come with something. Like, we're going to send you with a camera person and you're going to come back with footage like day 2. And it was like, wow, you can really kind of infiltrate and think like, how am I going to do this? And then there's like these big budgets, so you can hire a bunch of people that are great. And, I don't know. I mean,
that's amazing. I would love that. I've always just gone out, just like me and a camera person doing it ourselves with no money, and then can't even sell the documentary afterwards. It's just so hard.
No, exactly. But it's my experience too. As a freelance reporter. I mean, first I was like staff for networks, but even a big network, it's hard because they, you have to, like, when you're a 24-hour news machine, like you obviously have to have content all the time. So I appreciate and I understand the pressure that editors face, but yeah, I mean, a lot of the times it's like, you're spending your own money, you're really believing in something, nobody wants to buy it, and you're just like, why am I doing this? It's so tough. I've definitely been there too.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to talk to you about it afterwards because I could talk about it all day. But I've got to let you go, and I'm going to go as well in a minute because Sean's coming back on. But where can people find you and follow you and stuff?
So I'm pretty active on Twitter, Monica _VV. I have a website, monicavillamizar.com. I kind of put my latest stuff there. You know, I updated quite a lot. Instagram is my name and last name. Yeah, I don't really. I have a YouTube channel that I never update, so I should get into that. I think, but it's kind of weird because I do so many things for others. I don't have the rights, you know, so I can't like put the video. I don't know.
No, that's how I was when I started.
Sadly, the YouTube thing for me is like tricky.
Yeah, I was the same when I started mine. I wanted to put all my old stuff on there, all that stuff, but you can't. You know, I got to let you go because we're gonna be late otherwise. But thank you so much. I'm going to talk to you on Twitter in a minute anyway. But it was lovely having you on.
Cool.
And
likewise, it's so nice to talk to you. I hope your audience enjoyed it.
I bet they did. Right, and then where's the boy?
Hey, what a fascinating interview, and what a brave woman.
Yeah, amazing. I couldn't do half the stuff she does.
Getting called out by a senior cartel member, even. Good grief, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night.
You've done your own intrepid things, you know, Sean.
But I'm normal now.
Yeah, you are. You seem a very normal, very nice, lovely man. By the way, I'm going to leave you to talk to Dan. Dan he'd be fed up with me. He's seen my ugly mug enough times. So I'm leaving you to it. I'm going to have some dinner, and I'll be back on the Patreon in an hour or so.
Okay, fantastic. Let's bring Dan.
See you, mate.
Hey, Dan, how is it going?
Good. How are you doing, Sean?
Great. Thank you for joining us for a third time.
Absolutely. I love it. Thank you for having me back on again.
Had really tremendous positive feedback on your story so far. But for viewers who've not seen it yet, let's just do a recap then. So at the end of part 2, you were talking about a guy who was a snitch and he kind of got a pass. He came back on the yard. There was some violence. And just in more general terms then, what was the prison system you were in and what state?
I was in the federal prison system in a low security at Coleman Federal Prison, which is Central Florida.
Florida Federal Prison.
Yep.
And that's different from, just to explain to people, so you got the state system in America and you got the federal system. And they're both very different, aren't they?
Night and day, you know, but there is some pretty good misconceptions. A lot of people think, you know, feds are it's Camp Cupcake, and it's usually the food's definitely going to be better. The living quarters are usually nicer, but depending on the custody you go to, the level of custody, whether you go to a camp for like a white collar crime, or you go to the penitentiary for, capital murder. In the federal system of the penitentiary, they definitely see some severe violence and gangs and a lot of the stuff you would see on TV that would want to keep you out of prison.
Yeah, and for viewers who are familiar with my story, then there was certain gang rules that I talked about, the rules of racial separation. What were the rules in Florida feds? Because I was in Arizona State, so I imagine other side of the country, there's probably some similarities, but there's probably a lot of differences as well.
Yeah, like on the West Coast, you got much more of like the Mexican gang, like the Sureños and Norteños. On the East Coast, you see some of that, but as far as we call them cars, or like your political views in prison, in the federal prison system, it's similar. You see a lot of like the white guys stick with the white guys, Spanish stick with the Spanish, blacks stick with the blacks, and based on what your crime is, if you cooperated or you snitched or you had a sex offense crime. A lot of times you have to kind of show your paperwork, and if you had some crimes that are serious enough, there was certain areas of the yard or certain areas of the chow hall, TV rooms that you weren't allowed, or you had to pay like an extortion fee to kind of have protection. That wasn't so prevalent at the low security, but mediums and penitentiaries in the same prison I was at definitely obeyed by those rules. Where I was at, there was a large majority of actual sex offenders at a low security. So I was at one level higher than like the minimum security. So there's minimum camps, and then there's low security, which is behind razor wire and everything else. And there was a lot of sex offenders who pretty much had, the worst run of it because they couldn't go anywhere without receiving some sort of threat or violence.
So I'm just wondering how strict the rules of racial division were that you experienced. So where I was at, there's a day room, and all the races are sat on their own tables. In the very beginning, I started to work out with a Chicano gang member. And then the AB guys come up to me. Hey, do you look around the room? Do you see anyone else working out with other races? You got a lot to learn, would that kind of stuff be enforced on you in the feds?
Yeah, there was definitely like, I think you just used the word wood, correct?
Yep.
Yep, yeah, we had wood pile and whatnot as well. When I got to the low and I started engaging in, but what you said is absolutely correct. The TV rooms, chow hall. Now there were some guys that would kind of, go sit with, a different race, but for the most part, whites sat with the whites watched TV with the whites. We had like the white TV, the Spanish TV, the black TV. And we even had white, Spanish, black TV rooms, like separate TV rooms. But when it came to working out, I originally started working out with the white guys, but the problem was, at least where I was, a lot of the white guys they were from like kind of like Alabama, Kentucky, and they were extremely racist. But they also, a lot of them were in there for a lot of like meth type of situations, and there was just really, I didn't get along with any of these guys. I actually ended up getting along better with the brothers, with the black guys in there. And it was a bit of an issue in the beginning because the white guys were like, "You fucking race traitor," and the black guys were like, "Who's this white guy in our group?" And it took about a good 30, 45, 60 days before people kind of stopped questioning it. But when it came to working out, when they would come to me and kind of say these things, I would say, "Well, on my release date, are you coming home with me? Are you going to be the one that's going to, because I came in by myself and go home by myself, and we're at a low security and nobody in there really wanted to create too much violence." So I said, unless this is going to be a major issue, I don't have nothing in common with you all. You guys are all wanting to go get swastika tattoos, and I get it, do your thing, but I'm out of here in, a year and a half. I'm not really looking to become a return inmate.
Yeah, so that you said that was in the beginning. So in my beginning, I saw a white guy try and hang out with the black gang, and he got absolutely destroyed by the whites. So it sounds like perhaps there was more room for maneuver in the feds.
In the low security of the feds, yes. Now, if I'd gone to a medium or a penitentiary in the feds, um, if a fight would have broke down, I would have had to, even if I wasn't affiliated, I would have been in the wood pile or whatever, non-affiliated white guy. I still would have had to have my fellow white man's back. In the low, it just, politics didn't really exist as extreme in the low security, because anybody that would create fights or go out and start politicking, their custody level would get bumped and they'd go to a medium or a pen, where now you literally do have to worry about who you're talking to, where you're sitting. So there's a bit of a luxury where I was at. It sounds like you were in the state, but you were at a higher security level in the state. Because I've watched your story too. You've definitely you could run circles around the reason why I went to prison. People used to tell me, "Dan, you're still going to be pooping out McDonald's when you get out of here." So
Yeah, well, I did time in every single security level, and like you say, in the minimum, the low, as you call it, I was able to have a friend like T-Bone. He didn't want to walk around the yard with me, but he could come to my cell and talk to me, big black guy. The rules were way more relaxed, but in the higher up you go, the more stricter it's enforced.
yeah.
So
The inmates run, as you know, the inmates run the higher security prisons. The guards are just there. Basically, if you live within certain rules and boundaries, you pretty much do what you want. Low security is a little bit more involved with your kind of, the guards are running it a bit more, because you mouth off and you're like, all right, you want to act like a big shot, we'll put you, because the federal prison I was at, Coleman Federal Prison, is the largest prison facility in the United States. It's got a camp, a low, a medium, and 2 penitentiaries. And we were butt up against the penitentiary, where walking our yard, we could see the penitentiary, we could see the walls, and every single day we would hear concussion grenades going off, or I guess a riot or a fight would break out. And then if guys didn't get down, you would hear a warning shot followed by live rounds, shoot to kill. And then almost weekly, you would see, paramedics and ambulances coming in, assumably taking out bodies out of the penitentiary for the race wars in there.
How strong were the Aryan Brotherhood in the feds in Florida?
They were pretty big. The white boys were pretty big there. So there's Pen 1 and Pen 2. Pen 1 was more of the gang affiliated penitentiary. Pen 2 was the dropout pen, where people that no longer wanted to be affiliated, they would serve their time at Pen 2, so they could try to kind of integrate back into some sort of a normal society once they were to be released, if they were to be released. But it was very, very heavy. And you would see the mentality of a guy that would like be in a medium security prison, where it's pretty political as you're referring to, where their points would drop and they would actually end up coming to a low security, even though they had more freedom to move around and talk to who they wanted to. The lack of the presence of disrespect was also more prevalent because there wasn't as many consequences. So you would see these guys going, man, you can't talk like this in the medium. If you were to say that or hang out with that person or make a joke like that in the medium, you would get smashed. So I was one of those guys that was very, very aware of how lucky I was to be at this security level and not that security level, where I think other guys got a little too comfortable and they would forget they were in prison. And even though you're in a low, we would still see some severe violence. You can only push somebody so far. Some of these guys came from a medium or a penitentiary and they had no problem going back.
Yeah. And what were like the consequences then of breaking rules where you were at, like gang rules? And did you have to go to things like white boy meetings?
They had them. I don't know if it was just the way I would just kind of conduct myself, but okay, first off, I wore a prison costume into the prison, which
yeah, I love that.
spoke about that in the prior episodes. So that created kind of everybody kind of knew who I was immediately. And then I started teaching some of the credit repair classes. And then some guys that were already there that were serving that came down from other custody levels have known me from outside of the prison. So I had like this level of respect kind of throughout the prison, which I joke around and saying prison was like my high school because I was finally like the cool kid in a unit, but I didn't have to do any of the things that a lot of the other guys were doing. Now, if I had crossed certain lines and whatnot, I'm sure I would have, but I got to avoid almost every prison political issue that you would normally somebody would have to go through, but I got to partake in all of the fun parts of it, the gatherings of the meals, eating with certain groups, being able to ask for a favor if I needed something from the outside. These were things that I had privilege of doing without putting in the work. And it kind of sounds messed up, but you're in prison for a reason. And my scam was to have everybody like me and do what I want to do without having to do what they wanted me to do.
Would you say that the AB in Florida was stronger in the state prison or the feds?
Oh, state. Yeah. Especially in those custody levels, I think I introduced you to another guy. I don't know if he's going to be on your show today or not, Josh from DOC TV. And he can comment a lot more on this because he did state time in Florida. So he went to prison for very similar reasons that I went, but he just happened to go state. Completely different experience, night and day. He's all tatted up with white boy. So he went through all of these things that you're referring to.
Yeah, well, all right. Well, thanks for that. So let's get back to your story then. So,
sure.
Like I said, at the end of part 2, we left off with some violence, and then the snitch guy getting put back on the yard because he was an information source for the guards. They didn't want him to be removed off the yard, did they?
Right.
Was it Lewis? Lewis was that his name?
They called him Lois. He was a black kid, but he was openly gay, and I don't know if his real name was Lewis, but everybody called him Lois. And Lois was notorious for getting in all kinds of trouble. Lois would have cell phones brought in and contraband and cigarettes, and Lois would disappear to solitary confinement where somebody else would be gone for 60, 90, 120 days minimum. Lois would be gone for a week at most, and then brought back to the compound where other guys would go serve their time in the SHU. For those that don't know, SHU, Special Housing Unit, solitary confinement, spend their time in the SHU, and they would get shipped to a different security or a different prison. Lois just kept coming back to the same one and was like a protected species on the prison compound. Nobody messed with Lois. Everybody knew that Lois could kind of do it. Lois destroyed this guy with a hot iron. Beat the living out of him with an iron I thought the guy was dead, and came back into the compound, and there was no retaliation against her, him, whatever. So yeah, Lois was able to, I'm trying to think of the unit she would go report to. It's been so long, you start to forget certain terms in there, but it was basically the S&I. I think it was called S&I, where the lieutenant's office would have, where they would go if you had any kind of issue where somebody was treating you wrong, you'd bring it to them, and then they would launch an internal investigation inside the prison. And Lois was constantly in their office, at least once a week, and no shame. So Lois had extra food, extra trays, always had extra milks, because we had hustles where people, you pay the milkman to get your milk, other than what you get at the chow hall. And Lois just had full everything, living the life in Coleman Low.
So how far into your sentence are we at this point of the story?
That was probably, I would say 3-4 months into my sentence, where I was witnessing like either make friends with Lois or at least be cordial with Lois. Definitely don't cross Lois. There was a few inmates in there that you knew just to, they just had privilege, and no matter how unfair or fair it was just the law of the land. You just kind of had to deal with it.
And what was the next drama in your life going through the system?
Really, the biggest drama that I dealt with in prison was through the RDAP unit, the Residential Drug Abuse Program, the one that you successfully complete RDAP and it knocks time off of your sentence. And you're in this housing unit. In my housing unit, there was 150 guys, so we'll call it 100 plus, anywhere up to 100, 150, all in the same unit or all in the same program, RDAP, where you're expected to hold each other accountable and you have to tell on each other in morning meetings. And the inside politic that goes on in there is very similar to like what you would see on like a reality TV show, like Survivor or something, where they're like these internal groups where you're plotting and planning to hit this guy, and this guy, you're going to get him in trouble for doing this. And sometimes it backfires and they find out about it, and you say the wrong thing out loud. You start talking about other inmates and what you heard throughout these groups, and you're walking the track and you're afraid that somebody else is going to hear you, because if you shared something in a group, Sean, and I'm out walking the track and I mentioned what you shared in a group to somebody that was not in that group, it's breaking confidentiality of the RDAP program, and it's immediate removal, and you get your year taken back. I mean, it's a high risk situation for 10 months. It's probably the hardest, most stressful thing I've done in my entire life was that program.
Wow. And what was going through your head at this point of your sentence? Because I know there's various stages of adaptation.
I couldn't wait to get in the program because, knocks a year off your sentence for one. And the unit was usually quieter because, they had rules. They have the same rules in that unit that they do all the units. But as you know, in a regular unit, if, lights out is 10 o'clock means no talking, people don't obey to that. People are doing what they want. In RDAP, if you have lights out and 10 o'clock is supposed to be silent time, if you're talking and another inmate hears you when you're not supposed to be talking, the next morning during the morning meeting, they might go, I want to pull up Mr. Wise today. Mr. Wise, yesterday it was 10:30 p.m. We're supposed to be in our bunks, either reading a book or being quiet. And you were communicating with another inmate. You broke this rule, this rule, this rule. So they're snitching on you, and you can get in trouble if you keep displaying the same behavior. So the mind psychology behind it was so hard to adapt to this, because I assumed the program was going to be, I never did AA or NA in the free world, and I imagined it was going to be something similar to where you just kind of go through the motions, tap dance, do what they want you to do, and you get a year off. And it was completely the opposite of that. It was everybody's out to get you. You don't know who's going to pull you up. You're living every day in constant anxiety and fear. To so many times I was like, I'm just going to drop out. This isn't worth getting the year off. But then I would think about my kids and my family and, what it would mean to them. And it was just, oh man, graduating RDAP felt better than my release date of prison. When I graduated RDAP, it was more like, I enjoyed that better than getting out of prison altogether. I'm not going to lie.
So these guys then, do they get rewarded for snitching you out in this RDAP?
Yeah, because so when you sign up for RDAP, you agree to participate in all functions of RDAP, which is morning participation, holding each other's accountable, giving and receiving feedback. So part of the holding accountable, if I see, if you're in my RDAP unit and I see you take chicken out of the chow hall, I have to pull you up in the next morning meeting. And if I don't pull you up and somebody else pulls you up and they found out that I saw you do it and not pull you up, I get pulled up for enabling you, which I get in more trouble than you did for this. The whole thing it creates this vacuum of constantly looking over your shoulder, constant look, who's watching, maybe you're on the phone with your girlfriend and she says something, you get upset and you're like, quit being a dumb, you say something. And then the next day somebody's like, I want to pull you up for loaded words. You're on the phone with your girlfriend and you called her. I mean, it's just leaving the water on when you're washing your hands, not brushing your teeth. I mean, anything and everything is reason to pull somebody up, and the staff encouraged it. And you had to play these humiliating games. Inmates would create, like, every day there'd be a upbeat activity where some of the inmates would come up with really clever ones, but then other ones would be like, if you have to, they'd give you like a spell the word, whatever. And if you spell it wrong, the consequences, you have to stand up and sing "The Wheels on the School Bus Go Round and Round" in a little kid voice. And you're asking a grown man to stand up in 150 other men and sing, like, this cartoon in this little kid voice. And the staff would be like, well, that's the consequence. You got to do it. And I get it. They're trying to get you to practice humility for the free world, but they take it a little bit too far in some of the activities.
I'm just trying to picture this because, every prison you go to, it's like snitches get stitches. And this is like the opposite of that, isn't it? So when you say getting pulled up, then is this a morning group meeting of inmates mostly, or are the staff there listening to all this and documenting it as well?
There's staff that are kind of there, but it's inmate. So the whole RDAP concept is community's method. They want RDAP. They want you to police yourself and hold each other accountable. So they would be there just to oversee the meeting, and the morning meeting would consist of like news and weather. If the dorms are going to be locked for cleaning up, things like that. And then there would be a section like pull-ups. Does anybody have any pull-ups this morning? And you would just see arms raise. And you're like, "Phew, man, is it going to be me? Are they going to call me?" And when you would hear your name called, like if I said, this morning I'd like to pull up Mr. Attwood, and you're like, "Oh, I don't even know what's going on." You would stand up and, "Mr. Attwood, this morning, the reason why I'm pulling you up is yesterday in the chow hall, and you're a phase 2 member, Mr. Attwood, so you definitely know better. You were in the chow hall and you went through the line twice. And when you got the second piece of chicken, you attempted to put it in a plastic bag and you stuck it in your pants and you brought it back to the unit to make chicken salad. And this is against BOP policy. But more than that, you're an RDAP where you're holding yourself to a higher standard. So if you can't live by the rules in here, Mr. Attwood, how are you going to function on the street?" The last question I have for you, if you're not taking this serious program, why don't you just quit so somebody else can take your seat? And then you have to give feedback. You can't roll your eyes. You got to stand there. And if you're caught, if you do one of these, like, "Oh my God," you roll your eyes, somebody else will raise their hand. "Oh, correction. Mr. Attwood's not taking accountability. He's rolling his eyes. He's showing bad posture." And it's like, dude, it's 10 months of this. It's 10 months. You ever seen Clockwork Orange?
Oh, yes.
Based on Clockwork Orange, like psycho analyzing, break your mind. Yeah, so I just got chills talking about it. I'm going to need a drink after this.
Are there some members of this group then that turn into Grand Inquisitors that particularly,
we used to call them, we had snipers and assassins, and it's like, you don't want to get pulled up by this guy because he's going to go in and try to cut your throat off in the pull-up session. We would see some guys lose it. Like, they're thinking to themselves, like, because they come from higher security prisons and they don't give it two hoots about getting time off. So they want to go fight after this. They're threatening someone's life. They're getting moved off the compound. People are dropping out. People are quitting the program every day because they can't take it. People are getting removed from the program every day because they're not programmed or they got pulled up too many times. And you're messing with somebody's time. I tried to never pull anybody up for anything that would mess with their time. Like, I would do something like, you were brushing your teeth and we're not supposed to leave the water running because we're on a water shortage right now. And while you were brushing your teeth for too long, you left the water running. It's not something that they're going to kick you out of the program for, but you get caught like stealing milk out of the chow hall or something like that, because it's not just the milk, it's the action of stealing. That can definitely create much more of a consequence. Or if you get caught breaking confidentiality, putting your hands on another person, instant out, breaking confidentiality, instantly out of the program. So there were certain things that I avoided, but again, I held my own in there. Talking has been my gift. So, people were afraid to pull me up because if I was coming back for you, I would just wait and stalk in the shadows until you made that one fatal mistake. And then when RDAP Dan stands up, he's swinging a sword because, but I tried to keep my sword holstered as much as possible.
There has to be consequences. So what I'm thinking next is, just to explain to the public then, if you steal something from the chow hall or the kitchen and you get caught doing that, that's a disciplinary sanction. You get written up by a guard, and there's various levels of penalties depending upon how many of these things you get. You can even end up in court getting additional charges for things. So if these guys are calling you out at these morning meetings, where's the line drawn then before the staff step in and say, "Hey, this is a disciplinary infraction"?
The staff would never step in unless the staff is the one that caught you. Now, let's say I walked out with a milk in my pocket and the staff caught me with it. Now I get in trouble by the staff who caught me with it. And then, of course, there's other inmates who are watching this. You can be damn sure the next morning somebody's going to be like, Mr. Wise stole milk and got caught by the staff. I mean, it's just it starts to build on itself. But if you weren't in RDAP and you're just in a regular unit and you stole milk, the worst they're going to do is, I mean, I got caught stealing eggs, hard-boiled eggs. Before I was in RDAP, I was just in a regular unit. And the guard, he was like, I think I must have looked guilty. I felt like he was staring at me, and I'm sure he wasn't. I'm just not a good thief. So when I walked out with eggs in my sock, he's like, wait, come here. And he patted my eggs. He took my eggs out. I was like, and consequence was I had to go put on my full uniform, which was, basically green khaki pants, your black boots, an undershirt, green khaki shirt. And I had to go out in the middle of the grass that was freshly cut with this pink push lawnmower. And I would just have to cut the grass for like the next 2 hours when there was no grass to cut. It was more of like a humiliating consequence. But the consequence in RDAP was much more severe because the worst they would do is it wouldn't be a sanction in the prison. They would kick you out of the program and you lose your year and you go back into regular compound and you got to do 12 more months than what you would have done. So that year dangling over your head, man, it really adds or takes years away from your life.
And were the people present who were so vindictive that they wanted to call you out for things that could potentially make you lose your year, or did they know to draw the line? Don't mess with a man's prison sentence.
Some guys knew to draw the line, and some guys, the ones that you would think were like the gangster thug ones in the unit, you would think they were the ones that would like watch the line. They were the ones that would come in for somebody's throat. And the staff loved it. The staff loved it when there was like a tough guy or somebody that's like very like street heavy would come in there and start playing by these rules. But what the staff didn't know is these guys were faking it. They would do it during treatment hours, but as soon as treatment hours were over, they were back out in the yard. They were smoking cigarettes out on the handball court. And it would usually come back to get them in the end because you go through different phases in RDAP. You have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Phase 1, you're expected to make some mistakes. So you get pulled up in phase 1, as long as you say, yes, I did steal the chicken out of the towel. Yes, I understand the consequences. Yes, I'm going to practice this to make better. They expect you to do that in phase 1. Phase 2, you might get pulled up a little bit here and there. It shouldn't be as first severe, but they're also expecting you to be able to pull up others. And by phase 3, you get caught doing something in phase 3, like taking chicken or smoking out on the handball court. It's no questions asked. You're out of the program because now it shows that you just been kind of gaming the system, telling them what they want to hear, and playing both sides of the fence. One foot in, 1 foot out, and you would just see these guys doing it, and God, you would just like, man, I just want to go, get this guy in so much trouble because here he is pulling me up in the morning meeting, and now there he is over there smoking. But I wasn't that guy. I wasn't going to go telling you for smoking a cigarette on the handball court because that was going to get you removed. And I wasn't about to lose my teeth over, somebody smoking a cigarette.
It's always the people pointing the fingers that are doing the stuff.
Yeah.
That they're accusing others of.
Such is life.
Dan, we've run out of time again, but we'd love to get you back for part 4 if you're up for it. Do you want to tell the viewers where they can find you?
Yes. Actually, this is streaming on my YouTube channel right now.
Great.
So, yes, guys, RDAP Dan on YouTube. I know your amazing crew there will post links, but I was told to ask you to come on my channel, Sean.
Absolutely, man. This coming week, that would be great.
Okay, so
what's our time difference with Florida?
Right now it is 3:00 my time. I think it's what?
We're at 8, so 5 hours.
I can do it whatever time works for you, man. I love your story. I've been following you for years, and finally got me on your show. So whatever works.
Yeah, we'll schedule something up after this.
Okay. Well, Sean, I appreciate it. You guys find me anywhere on YouTube. If you're going through something tough, if you're facing a federal prison sentence or a state sentence, whether it's UK or the United States, there's programs we have to help you take accountability, get through this, and realize you're not alone. Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it.
All right. Cheers, brother. Take care, man.
You too.
Thanks, Dan. All right. Bye-bye. All right. We are now signing off the 2 hours on YouTube because we're going over to Patreon. We're going to be discussing things that are banned from being discussed on YouTube, including the M trial. We've got Addy Ads is commencing in about 10 minutes on the Patreon, and the link for the Patreon is in the description box below this video. Hope you enjoyed the first half of tonight's Attwood Unleashed. what an absolute blast talking to the guests today. I think people are really buzzing over the Flat Earth guy. But what a lovely guy, you know. He took all of the blows and kept a very, very happy demeanor about himself. So, yeah, he was a good energy guy. But I'm not a subscriber to Flat Earth by any means, as I'm sure the majority of the viewers aren't. Huge thank you to Ash for arranging these Attwood Unleashed. Thank you to Andrew, of course, for being such a brilliant co-host, and huge thank you to all the viewers and all the patrons for supporting what we're doing. The next Attwood Unleashed is Wednesday night at 6 p.m, another 4-hour one. Thursday night, we've got a cop on at 6 p.m. exposing the Freemason conspiracy in the police force in Greater Manchester. And then on Sunday, I think it's Darren G, part 4, where he's running around London, putting his banner on Buckingham Palace and covering the recent protest. Massive police presence provides quite an interesting backdrop to that podcast, actually. So, yeah, we're trying to get content out now 3 or 4 nights a week at 6 p.m. So, again, you know, thanks to the whole team for enabling us to produce these quality guests. All right, take care, everybody out there. Much love. Cheers from London. Thank you for